Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like me to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations, just look for this orange box over on the website, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I will send you that free guide. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a review of the Canon RF 24-70 2.8L IS lens. Now that is a mouthful, but this is part of the Hebrew Trinity. If you don't know what the Hebrew Trinity is, it is comprised of the 15-35 2.8, 24-70 2.8, and the 70-200 2.8 RF. So I was able to take this lens out into two real-world situations. One was photographing a DJ for Radio 1045 in the studio, where I just had window light coming in and also some mixed light in the background that I either left on or turned off, as well as a concert situation where I photographed Michael Franti, and the lighting was actually really good for that show. So how does it feel in the hands? This lens feels great. It's a little bigger than I'm used to when it comes to using older 24-70s because the RF mount is much larger. Now, it feels good. The zoom range is pretty short feeling. The throw is pretty short. So you can just twist through and go from the 24 all the way to 70 without a problem. On the side of the lens, you have a lock. Now, I'm not sure why the lock is there. It's not like this thing is gonna, I can barely pull it out. Well, that's because my finger was actually holding it down on the ring. Good job, Jared. You can pull it out like this, but I don't think if you hold it like this, it's going to creep at all, ever. So I'm not sure why they put a lock on this lens. They have a command ring all the way out here on the outside of the lens that I personally turn off and don't use. I know some people say, well, you could quickly change the ISO, and I'm like, you could also accidentally quickly change the ISO and throw off your settings while you're taking it out of the bag. Well, it's not gonna change when you take it out of the bag, but when you're just doing something, letting it down by the side, and you put your hand on it and you accidentally turn this, I don't wanna do that. So I find this ring to be absolutely useless for me. You have an 82mm filter thread on here, so you're gonna need some pretty large filters if you're gonna put filters on to this lens. On the side of the lens, you have two switches. You've got an AF to manual, as well as an IS. Now, IS on or IS off, this is built into this lens. Now, part of the reasons that they have IS built into this lens is because the EOS R and the EOS RP do not have image stabilized sensors. Now, we're thinking that in the future, when they do upgrade to something else more professional, they will have IBIS in body, and hopefully in combination with IS in the lens, you will have some superhuman powers when it comes to hand holding in low light situations. Will that happen? I don't know. We'll have to wait and find out. This lens weighs 1.98 pounds, so just under 2 pounds, or 900 grams. For any of you playing out there at home who don't know what pounds are, because I don't know what grams are. In terms of close focusing, you can now get within 8 inches with this lens to get close focus, opposed to 1.25 feet with the older 24-70. Now, with that being said, the older 24-70s coming in at $1,600 on sale at the time of this recording, where this lens is clocking in at $2,300. So there is a premium when you buy RF glass. Now, there is one thing I want to point out before we get to the sample images, and that is the back cap for the RF glass. It only can go on one way, or you can't get it on. See, it's not on. I like the old EF caps. I like how Nikon did it, because I can't get the cap on when I'm not looking. You have to line up the dots or something. There it is, there's a line. There, oh. You have to line it up perfectly with this line, this check mark, to put it on. When I'm at a concert and I'm changing lenses quickly from the 24-70 to the 15-35 to the 70-200 to whatever I'm switching, and I can't get the lens cap on right with one hand, that means it's either going to fall off and get lost in the darkness, or I'm just leaving the lens exposed, which isn't that big of a deal, but I should just be able to put it on there and turn it, and it should be perfectly fine. So now let's jump into some of these images, and don't forget you can download sample raw files over on the website so that you can pixel peep them to your heart's content, so you can decide, are they good or are they bad? Now let's look at the first image. This one was done at 1/60th of a second at 2.8 ISO 1600, 42 millimeters. So this is Jammin' Jess. She's on radio 104.5. I went black and white because it just worked better in this situation for this particular picture. Using this lens in the real world, it just works fantastically well. In combination with the EOS R that is updated with the latest firmware and IAF, I relied on IAF the entire time I photographed Jess in the studio, and it worked extremely well. It kept finding the eye, it didn't really miss, and all of those images are nice and sharp. As we can tell right here, it found her eye. It is super duper sharp and nice. This is a great lens. This is the lens that is going to be in every professional's bag. Every professional is going to have a 24-70, 70-200, and probably a 15-35, which we will have a review on if it's not out yet. It will be out at a later date, so you could check that one out. The reason I put this image in here, because it's one of the only images that I actually took at 70 millimeters. So I just wanted to put that in, and look how super sharp it is right on her left eye. Nice and sharp. And the IS definitely helps in a situation where you're shooting at 1/60th of a second. Just in case I have any handshake in there, the IS is going to compensate for that. And that is also one of the reasons why the lens is a little more expensive, is because you have IS built in. Let me jump in here real quick and let you know that the images you're seeing on the screen right now were edited using FroPack 2. If you're looking to speed up your RAW workflow or add some unique looks to your edits, we created 15 all-new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at FroKnowsPhoto.com/FroPack2. Over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they are on sale for a limited time. Now, let's jump back into the video. Moving on to the next one, let me paint this scene for you. The window light is hitting her, which means she is facing the window. I turned off all the other lights in the studio because it was terrible mixed lighting. My back is against the wall, the window is over here to my right side, so I'm not blocking any of the light, and that's how I was able to get this composition. I wanted to get the board in the background so you could see that it's nice and out of focus with the bokeh, and the lights are there, which really look good. The microphone is out of focus, the pink pom-poms are out of focus, and we are drawn right into Jess's eye and nose ring because she has a nose ring. But I like the colors, I like the tones I was able to get out of the EOS R, and again, the IAF hit perfectly fine. Moving on to the next one, I leaned back just a little more, and it looks like I got down at a lower angle because I put my back over this desk thing that's near the wall so that I could lean back and get this shot. Again, it's nice and ultra wide. 24 millimeters is nice. 24-70 zoom range is incredible. That does make you question a 15-35 a little bit because it's 15 on the wide, it's 35. There's going to be some overlap. In this situation, a 15-35 may have been the better choice, but I was testing out the 24-70 in this location because I needed to give you some test pictures to download. So having both of these lenses in the bag is going to be interesting. Actually, let me pull this one over here real quick just to show you a quick size comparison because I got confused when I was photographing the concert. Look at this. Which one's the 24-70 and which one's the 15-35? There's really nothing to delineate between both of them if you're not looking. So there was a situation, and you're going to see in a second with this photo at the concert, where I thought I had the 15-35 on, and after I shot the images, I realized I didn't. I was at 24, not 15, because both of these lenses feel about the same in the hands, and that confused me. Now, that's probably not that big of a deal. I'll get used to that the more I use them, but it was just one of those things where I was more focused on capturing the moment, and I didn't realize that I wasn't ultra wide at 15. I was actually at 24. So now we're into the concert situation. This is where I'll tell you where IAF failed. It didn't work in this lighting situation. Even though the lights were great on Michael Franti, and there was a ton of light, there was a ton of whitewash with nice colors in the background, that is great. Even though the lights were great, the IAF did not find his face. It just couldn't, and it didn't find his eye. It just couldn't keep up with him moving and in this lighting situation. Now, I've used the Z7 in this same concert situation, actually at the same exact show, and that did okay in some, with a tighter lens. It found the face and barely found the eye. But when I've used something like the A9, the original firmware of the original A9 in a concert situation, it did fantastically well. So if anybody tells you that the EOS R's IAF is on par with the Sony's, it's not. But in the situation with Jess in the studio, it did a very good job, and I could rely only on the IAF without having to worry that it would miss. Now this is a full body shot. This one's at 35 millimeters, 1/640th of a second at 3200 ISO. Now the reason I'm showing you this is when we zoom in on his face, you can see there is an LED light right behind him, and it's not creating any ghosting. There's no chromatic aberrations that I see at this point. So this is nice to see. Is there lens flare? And no, there's no lens flare that I can see right now. You can download this raw file with this light coming in right at me. These are LED lights. These aren't the old school lights because they've all switched to these bright ass LEDs that put out really intense light, and it looks really good. So there's that shot. Moving on to the next image, I went ahead and got a little tighter. It's not the perfect composition for a concert photo, I will tell you that right off the bat. But what I love about seeing in the image for this test shot is that you have different LED lights in the background crossing from the red to the yellow to the whitewash that's on his face, so that it looks like nice separation. You've got the white up front and you've got the nice colors in the background. Not the greatest concert shot in the world, but it is super tack sharp right on him. Now with the EOS R, I would go ahead and press my thumb on the back of the LCD screen so I could move the focusing point where I wanted it to be, and you can still move it very quick. But when IAF gets better, you won't even have to worry about that in the future. Let me jump in here real quick and say if you'd like to pick up this lens or any other camera gear for that matter, head on over to allenscamera.com. They've been around for over 40 years and they are a mom and pop where I used to work, and I actually shop there to buy all of my gear as well as trade in anything used towards new. So if you'd like to support a mom and pop store, head on over to allenscamera.com. Moving on to the next shot, we have a full body wide angle 24 millimeters of the guitar player who was he stepped to the front of the stage into the light, which gave me that opportunity to go vertical and shoot ultra wide. Well, it's not even ultra wide, it's just 24 millimeters. Now somebody out there might be thinking, Jared, what about the 28-70 f2? Is that part of the Hebrew Trinity? And the answer is, it could be if they had a 14-24 or a 14-28 f2, and then maybe a 70-180 or a 100-200 f2, which maybe that's wishful thinking in the future. The 28-70 is super expensive and it's super heavy. I would love to have it in the bag at all times, but this is much smaller and goes really well with the 15-35 and the 70-200. So in this situation, you have to decide, is the 28-70 f2 better for you, even though it doesn't have IS built in? Which I don't think is really a deal breaker on a 28-70, but in most situations, this is less expensive at $2,300 compared to the $3,000 of the other one. And it's also lighter and smaller. So here we go, move the focusing point up to his face, nice and tack sharp. The colors look good at 3200, what are we at? We're at 3200 ISO, 1/800th of a second, looks great. Light popping in from the back over his shoulder, still not creating any flare, so the lenses are spectacular. We know that Canon makes great L glass. The next one is just more of a play on the same shot that I just took, except for it's black and white and he was moving through. I love that one. And finally, this is the image that I thought I had the 15-35 on for, but I really actually had the 24-70 on, and I got upset because I'm like, wow, 15 would have looked better. But then again, 15 may have actually been too wide in this situation, but I would have had a 15-35, so I could have played with it. But I absolutely love this photo. IAF would have been terrible in this situation. It wouldn't have hit at all. What I was seeing when I had IAF on is that it would just put up those boxes and it just wouldn't hit where I needed it to hit. So I had to turn it off and rely on my thumb on the back of the screen to move it in this situation. But I love this photo. There's so many dimensions to it, with all of the peace signs in the hand, with the in the air, with the spotlights right there on Michael's hand giving the peace sign. It just works out really well. And don't forget, you can download all of the sample raw files that I talked about so that you can pixel peep them and see if you like those images. But now it's time for the count them, two most important tests, starting with the sniff test. Let's give this a sniffy sniff and see what it smells like. Snuffleupagus! Snuffleupagus is now 50 years old, though Sesame Street's 50 years old. I don't know if Snuffleupagus was actually introduced before that or later on and something like that. What is a Snuffleupagus? I don't even know. But let's wind tunnel test it. I'm gonna hold it this time. This way. I don't think it passed the wind tunnel test because the wind is just like hitting it and just going all over the, it's not going through it or over it. Well, it's a good thing it's not going through it. So anyway, who is this lens for? Look, if you're a professional photographer or you do this for a living, you're shooting weddings, you're using a Canon EOS R, this lens is absolutely for you. This is a native 24-70 2.8L IS that is meant for the EOS R and the RF mount. Canon will be putting out better, more professional bodies in the future, and this lens will be perfect as you grow into the future systems with Canon. I prefer using native glass versus adapting the other lenses onto this body, though I will say I think Canon adapts the lenses better than Nikon adapts the lenses to their mirrorless system. So if you do have the old 24-70 and you have moved mirrorless and you can afford to dump your 24-70 2.8 now and invest in the RF glass, I would highly recommend doing that. There is nothing wrong with this glass. I didn't expect to have anything wrong with this RF glass because I think Canon is still producing some, if not the best mirrorless glass in the world. So there you have it. That's the review of the 24-70 2.8L IS for RF cameras. Let me know what you think down below. Don't forget you can download the sample raw files, and that is where I'm gonna leave it. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.